Hello, welcome to another McLaren Fans podcast. Joining me this week, as always, is Sarah Merritt. Say hello, Sarah.
Hello, Sarah.
And friend of the show and returning guest, Perry Brown. How you doing?
Hi there, Andy. How you doing? You well?
Yeah, good. If you listen to this outside of the UK, it's hot and we're all inside and we're probably all thinking, I wish we had an ice cream or a lolly or something like that right now to cool us down. Or I think Sarah's improvised something to keep her cool during the podcast. What is it, Sarah?
I do. I have a hashtag best fan on the floor behind me, which I cannot easily show you without moving my laptop, but I'll tweet a photo of it later. Everybody needs a hashtag best fan when it's hot like this.
Yes. And if you bought another fan to put it on the other side, you could have hashtag best fans.
The best fans indeed, yes. Yes.
Right. So I've got kind of two things on the agenda tonight. One is to talk about the race. Well, three things actually.
Three things.
Oh. Three things. The magic number. 3 is the magic number. The first one is obviously to talk about the race. So we'll get into that.
Austria. Yep. So that's important.
Yeah. The second one is to talk about let's just say the less desirable element of fans that we've seen at races, not just this weekend, over the past few years, let's just say. And then the third bit is we've just got signed up a new sponsor deal with K-Swiss. So we're going to have, by the looks of it, McLaren trainers. Fantastic. And finally, the dream has been realised. I can kit myself head to toe in McLaren gear.
Oh, they don't do McLaren pants yet, Andy. Come on.
I do actually have some socks, so that's the only bit that's missing.
I've got socks too, yeah.
You know, you could go commando, and yeah, you know.
Well,
on that note, should we talk about the race?
I've lost for words, so I think that would be a good idea. Yes.
So this weekend was one of the sort of sprint races that we're having through the season. And I don't actually mind it at this track because it's quite a short track, quite a short lap. It feels more like a bit of a PlayStation when we get the sort of sprint races around Austria. And we tend to do well around Austria as well. So I was quite optimistic coming into the weekend. And then I watched free practice and quali. and I just thought, oh no, what on earth's going wrong?
All of the TV people were filming all these things with Lando going, so you've done really well here in the past. Tell us about your podium. And I did feel that as exciting as those memories must have been for Lando, he must have been sat there thinking, well, we're not going to do that well this weekend because it's not the same car. I don't know what you thought about that, Perry. He looked like he was not squirming in his chair, but was a little bit awkward, you know.
Yeah, so it's always tough when you return somewhere and someone says, right, you got a podium last year, you're going to do the same again. And as you say, like even coming like a fifth or a sixth would seem like a disappointment when someone's saying, well, you could have picked up a trophy. That's what you did before. But he's ever the realist. He's often too harsh on himself as well. So the last thing he needs is someone telling him, you've done better here in the past than you've done this weekend.
Yes, exactly. He's the wrong person to say that to, that's for sure. But anyway, he did remain upbeat over the weekend. So you quite liked the sprint, Andy, despite in the fact that a lot of fans have not been convinced by the sprint format. You thought in Austria it worked?
Yes. And I think it's more to do with the track. Whereas when we had it in Silverstone last year, I don't think it did it all. I think it was I think in places where there's a shorter track, the sprint will work better. I'm not convinced it's going to work in Brazil when we go there. I'm not quite sure where the other sprint race is. Is it Monza? Did we do one at Monza? Imola. I'm not sure it's going to really work in Imola either, given the nature of the track.
Do you know the biggest problem for me with the sprint? This is nothing to do with the on-track action. It totally buggers up my routine of scheduling for a race weekend.
Yeah.
I have to go on the Sky website and look at the times because it's just not familiar to me when things are going to be happening. And, you know, on Friday when the sprint quali's happening, most people are either at work or coming home from work. We're not allowed to call it the sprint quali though, are we? But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just feels like it throws things up in the air a bit. Yeah, and you're right. We didn't have the best practice, and it felt like we were heading towards. Well, it felt like we were a bit doomed, to be honest. I'm normally the really optimistic one, so I'll take a bit of Andy on board today. Yeah, I thought we were doomed. So therefore, as the weekend carried on, I was pleasantly surprised and more optimistic as things happened.
Yeah.
I don't know how you want to walk through that, Andy.
I kind of felt it was a little bit. We could have had a McHonda weekend. I was preparing myself for one of those, especially where we were after the sort of the first practice. However, and then I wasn't really surprised with sort of where we ended up in quali either, to be honest. 15th and 16th, and I guess there's always the next day the sprint you can pick up some places and stuff like that. But yeah, we're at 15th and 16th. You've got yourself a bit of a big task to move up, even in a sprint race, really. What about you, Perry? What did you think of the qualifying?
Yeah, exactly what you said. Like, we had a lot of issues in FP1. So going into qualifying, I sort of thought, okay, this is going to be one of those weekends. And it seems to be that in this season, our car is very peaky. We're either fighting with the best of the rest behind, say, the top 3 teams, or we have a weekend like we had in Bahrain, where we are pretty much nowhere, and we're struggling. We seem to have quite a draggy car as well, and this is obviously quite a fast track. So it was up in the air where we were going to be. So say 15th to 16th of issues. Okay, right. Is there a chance to move forward in the weekend format, given you've got a sprint, which gives you effectively an extra third of racing to in order to turn that qualifying into a good finish. And again, in 2022, your qualifying position means very little. Like you can move forward, you can make passes. So it was just we seem to build up slowly. Like we tend to take FP1, FP2 on a Friday to get our pace, and by Saturday we kind of get there. So qualifying on Friday, it means that we're going to be a bit slower, but over the weekend we build up momentum.
Yeah, and just out of interest, obviously the time of the race was it 3:30? Sorry, the time of the quali was it 3:30 on a Friday afternoon, something like that, 4 o'clock I think it might have been, which, like Sarah says, just knocks you out of kilter. Were you able to watch it, Perry, or did you have to try and catch up later? Was it a convenient time for you or not?
It was one of the only sessions I watched live. We had friends around this weekend, so I spent Saturday and Sunday out the house recording races and having my phone in airplane mode. And but qualifying, because I finished work, I'm lucky I finished work at midday on a Friday, so I got home, picked my daughter up from school, and then said, right, Daddy's time watching qualifying. So yeah, I could watch it, but I felt for everyone that, as you say, it's an important, like if you miss a practice session, you can be like, okay, it is just practice. There's not that much exciting action, but qualifying is, when the cars are run at their leanest, people want to see that. That's exciting action. That's why they've moved it to Friday. And for people to miss that because they're at work, it kind of sucks really for them.
Yeah. I think you're right. Yeah, well, let's move on to the sprint. First of all, we made up some places. We seem to have a bit more pace than we did in the quali and the FP session. And we moved up to 11th for Lando and 12th for Dan, sort of respectively, which kind of gave me a little bit of hope, thinking we've done all right here. We've done all right, but I still felt, God, we could just go backwards very quickly from here around this track. But the bit that kind of I don't know the answer to, maybe one of you two can answer this to me, is on a normal race weekend, I understand when Parc Fermé starts and when it finishes, right? So after quali, it starts, and then after the race, it's finished. You can't touch the car unless you're changing a part like for like because it's damaged and there would be a safety issue. But on a sprint race weekend, we've obviously got the FP3 on the morning. So is the Parc Fermé rules different? Is it after the sprint race that the Parc Fermé comes in for the race weekend, or is it after the quali? And I couldn't quite figure that out because obviously there's a bit of time to sort of tweak the car, change a few setup things and things like that.
The team answered. So Parc Fermé still takes place after qualifying.
Yeah.
So they still have to go through Saturday morning and FP2 with the car in Parc Fermé. The setup is therefore locked. And the team answered this on Team Stream. Someone asked that very question, saying, "Well, what does this mean? What can you do?" And they said it's kind of frustrating, but at the same time, it opens up opportunities that they can run through things that they probably normally wouldn't in a practice session.
Yep, I'm just looking online. The cars enter Parc Fermé after FP1 before being released for FP2, which will take place on the Saturday morning. Here they will be able to use one set of tyres of their choice. They then return to Parc Fermé ahead of the F1 sprint. So the thing as well, Andy, is you see those scrutineers in the garage. So even when the team are touching the car when they're doing things, the scrutineers you see in the garage are overseeing everything that's being touched on the car anyway, aren't they? So
yeah,
they can closely monitor that. But yeah, it's not as locked down, is it? Normally we think of Parc Fermé as the wall comes down. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's interesting. I was just curious because obviously it's a slightly different format for the weekend. So yeah. So just generally on the sprint, I thought we did all right. I thought it was quite entertaining. We took our opportunities and gave us a bit of a fighting chance for the start of the race the next day. So yeah, let's get on to the race itself. I thought we had a decent start. I noticed that Danny Rick jumped Lando pretty much at the start, and it was a bit vice versa here, there, and everywhere. It was nice not to see a car go off on its sort of upside down after the first lap.
It's always relieving when you don't see that. Yeah.
So it was nice to kind of just sort of have a decent enough sort of start and us keep out of trouble as well. And, you know, we kind of made up a few sort of places in the first sort of round of laps and looked a little bit kind of more fighty. And I was like, well, this is good. This is interesting. And then obviously, as the race went on, it was a matter of a few different things. Sort of, were we going to one stop? Were we going to two stop? Could we effectively finish above one of the Alpines, two of the Alpines, something like that? That was our race, basically. Although I am slightly concerned at how the Haas cars seem to be beating us every now and then, but they seem to kind of do all right for 3/4 of a race and then just drop off a cliff.
We were in a Haas sandwich quite a lot, weren't we?
We were.
And that worried me because as much as I love K-Mag, we know he can be a bit balls out when he's driving.
Yes.
Mick Schumacher is definitely stepping it up a gear in the last few races and also using his big kahunas when he's driving. And I thought, God, is this going to be where there's an overtake and we all come together and there's, you know, it's game over for everybody, you know, it kills their race. Yeah. So I was very happy that everyone was driving sensibly. Lots of overtakes. You know, I mean, there was one point in the race which Crofty seemed to nearly have a heart attack commentating upon. You know, you had three cars coming together. Then Lando approached the pack of people that were in an overtaking tussle, and he was in there as well. And we had 4 or 5 cars together all at once, sort of trying to overtake. I mean, that was brilliant. I'm sure they probably cut away from it to show us someone in the crowd at that moment, but
Yeah, probably somebody with a flare.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought that was absolutely brilliant to see. You know, I mean, they even cut away from Carlos's car being on fire to show the Ferrari pit wall. I couldn't believe that. Just as it was rolling back and it was on fire, they switched to Matteo Binotto on the pit wall. You're like, what are you doing? So you know, I thought there was some great overtaking, and we were in the mix there. You know, it felt like, and I don't know about you guys, but this is the way I feel in most races. I don't mind where we finish if I feel that we've done our best, we've used our opportunities. We may not win, we may not be on the podium, but it feels better if you feel like there's been action, we've done our best.
That we're a bit competitive in some respects. We're not front row competitive, but we want to be midfield competitive. And like Perry sort of said earlier, we've got a spiky car, which some weekends it's going to be a bit of a dog. Sorry, McLaren dog.
Oh, I was going with the perfecto first. Okay. Sometimes it's going to be
yeah, and then other times it's going to fly, and it's going to be like, oh, this is great. And you know, I think it's new regs, isn't it? We're going to work out those sort of things as we go along. Just on the overtakes, there was one point where Lando took two cars on the outside, and that was a great overtake. I was really pleased to see that. Yeah. And I don't remember for a few years that we've seen those kind of overtakes. So I think the new regs are working in some respects like that. But then again, it's quite a close track. So
some circuits we're seeing better racing, and then at other circuits people are moaning, going, "Oh, I thought the new regulations were supposed to help." But this weekend there was a lot of action on track, and you know, if I'd have been Lando, I'd have got out of the car and felt like I'd enjoyed myself. Yeah, because there was a lot of action, there was a lot going on. That's what it looked like to me, Perry. Did you feel that as well?
Absolutely, yeah. As you said, we were fighting the Hasses, and it seemed like every moment it cut to us, we were either overtaking a Haas or a Haas had just pitted and was overtaking us. There was just, as you said, it was just track action everywhere. It was a phenomenal race, and as good as Silverstone was, I thought this was just so much better even than that. And on top of that, it was all on the track as well, or mostly on the track. You know, people weren't just running off corners and then going, "Oh, this is entertaining. We'll let it slide. We'll let it slide because it's really entertaining." It was entertaining, but stayed within the white lines mostly.
Mostly,
yeah.
Mostly.
Well, we'll get on to a bit of that. But yeah, track limits came up. There was a lot of track limit violations, and I think a lot of the drivers were complaining. It's like millimeters for a lot of them, but technically they were over the line. We've discussed this before, and technically you're over the line. You're over the line, and it might be millimeters, it might be whatever else, but it's the same in tennis. You know, if you watch Wimbledon the weekend, there were calls that were millimeters out, and they don't just go, "Oh, you were close enough."
I think the rules are the rules, and they've got so used to this grey area that it's now harder. But the only thing I would say is a lot of drivers were saying, you know, with the view, the shape of the cars now, the undulating type of circuit it was, and the wheelbarrows that you see sort of going across the front of the wheels, they're not as well sighted to see whether they've gone just over the white line or not. So I'll take that. That may be a little bit of bullshit that they've introduced there to cover themselves, but you know, to me, that sounded reasonable. But yeah, if that's the case, and as they said in the statement released by the stewarding committee, the drivers asked for the white lines to be enforced. They stated that was where they wanted the limits to be. Well, you live by the sword, you die by the sword, don't you? So,
yeah. And I think the biggest argument for it as well, this white line is the limit. We don't see them ploughing through the barriers at Monaco and going, "Oh no, I drove to the limit of the track." They give the margin to the barriers, and if they get closer, they still don't hit it. So suddenly, if there's a white line, it should be no different. They should treat it like, okay, I'll give myself a bit of margin. If I run wide, I'm still within the white line. So I don't buy it. I absolutely love the stewards for saying the white line's the limit, and that's where the track edge is.
I absolutely 100% agree. And Brundle always says, doesn't he, that the cars wouldn't be there if it didn't gain them an advantage. So
Yeah.
there you go.
And
yeah,
I still love it, even though one of our drivers was affected by it.
Yeah.
It is what it is. So
yeah, you got a 5-second for it, which maybe it would have cost us a place, maybe not, but I think if it was just Lando who got 5-second, I would have been a bit more miffed. But basically, they were handing them out to everybody like sweets near the end, weren't they? So,
But that's just it. If you've got in your ear first warning, second warning, you've got a black and white flag. You should be giving yourself more margin, knowing that the next thing that's coming is a penalty.
Yeah.
Same in football. If you've got a yellow card, you play differently because you know that the next warning you get is actually going to see you watching the rest of the game from the changing room. So,
yep.
Yeah, it cost him a position, but as you say, almost rightfully so. And you don't want to say it as a McLaren fan, but yeah, if that applied to someone else, we'd be absolutely banging them to rights, wouldn't we? Saying no, that's that.
Yeah, I agree. So Lando finished 7th, Dan finished 9th, double points. Now, I think I've always said that my barometer this season of a good race weekend for us is double points. And, I was very happy with that result. I was happy with that result on a number of sort of areas, is that Dan looked just as pacey as Lando as well.
Yep.
And, we've given him a little bit of stick in the last sort of couple of episodes of, should he still be there? Should he still be doing this for McLaren? And all we don't expect Dan to kind of like be beating Lewis or sort of up there with Max or anything else like that, because the car's not good enough. We know the car's not good enough. We just want him to get the most out of that car that he can. And somebody made a really good point on another podcast I was listening to over the race weekend, which was
sorry, stop you there.
Yeah,
there's another podcast.
Yes, there are other podcasts out there.
Yes, carry on.
But maybe it was not so much that we've been looking at it slightly the wrong way, which is, actually, is Lando really that good, rather than is Dan not that good? And I think the closer they both get to each other and get the most out of that car, then wherever we finish, I'm quite happy with that, because I know that they're getting the most that they can get out of it. Granted, double points every weekend is what we really want. Just keep clocking them up. Consistency now to the end of the season is the absolute key for us.
I've got to stop you there, Donnelly, because that's not true. You're lying. You've said all you want is double points. That's not true. You have an obsession with another feature of the race, don't you?
Yes.
What is your obsession, Andy?
I quite like a good pit stop.
Exactly. So it's not just about double points, is it? It's about pit stops for you as well.
Yeah, but, we were the fastest on the pit stops this weekend.
And that's why you're not moaning about it.
That's why I've not mentioned anything about it whatsoever.
Yes. So you have to mention it when they're good as well, You can't just moan.
Yeah, I mean, but once again, even for the pit stops, it's consistency. And we seem to have taken our eye off the ball a little bit, but it seems to be coming back. We pretty much all our pit stops this weekend were spot on. And it's weird because the times seem to be quite track dependent as well, of how well we do. And you think that wouldn't be part of it, sort of the equation, but it does seem to be that way. So yeah, but we're doing well with them. But it's just those outliers where they go crazily wrong that I'm just a little bit kind of, come on,
what was that you said, Perry?
I said, you know what happened, don't you? They listened to the podcast after Silverstone. They thought, we can't take another tongue lashing off Andy.
They thought,
come on, guys, we've got to sort this out.
Grumpy git who's moaning about us. Yeah, get behind your team, stop moaning, and then they did all right. Yeah.
There's a lesson to be learned there, isn't there? Yeah. I'd like to say that I don't feel like I'm moaning. I think I'm just bringing up the point that I like to see consistency in the pit stops.
As we've said on previous podcasts, I'd like to see you lugging that big rear tyre out.
Yeah, There is footage out there. I'm sure John Leonard's got pictures of me doing pit stops at a Pirelli thing years ago that were very slow. Put it this way, if I'd done them, I would expect an absolute bashing off the podcast for the speed that I've done them at.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I don't
You had
even
enough.
think
You would have had
live.
enough time to get out of the car, put down a blanket, open your flask of tea, and have some scones and jam because you could have had a picnic in the amount of time. And that was only one tire.
Duly noted. Well, don't give up your day job then, Andy, eh?
No, definitely not. Nah. So yeah, I'm still in awe of the speed that they do it, but yeah, consistency is the key on all counts. So yeah, that's kind of me for the race. What about you guys? What's your take on it, Sarah?
I've got a really big admission to tell you guys, and you're going to think I'm terrible, but I fell asleep halfway through the race, and I had to rewind it and watch it again afterwards. And I'm not joking either.
It was warm.
I think I was relaxed watching it, and at one point, whilst I was laying on the sofa, I can remember hearing them saying that Carlos's car was on fire, and I thought I was dreaming that. So yeah, when I woke up and rewound it all, I was like, oh, it really was on fire. But yeah, so I got to kind of watch the race 1.5 times, which is why I was so focused on all those overtakes, because I watched them again. But no, I really enjoyed it. I guess my thoughts over the weekend are slightly darkened by the things we're going to talk about that we've read on Twitter.
Yeah.
Because no matter how good the track action was, that affected what I felt about it. And I feel that a lot of that is because, Andy, you and I have travelled to a lot of races. So if I say we've been about a bit, what I mean is we've been to races in different countries. We've seen different groups of fans. We've experienced what it's like to be in large groups of fans, at Monza, where we were squashed by Ferrari fans, and yeah, that Alonso bloke was in the way, and all these guys just ran through us and all of that. But none of the things, I mean, apart from the odd sort of sexist comment about, oh, you're a girl, you can't know anything about Formula One, nothing we've experienced when we've been at a circuit has been like the things I've been reading this weekend.
Yeah.
And that worries me, because it puts me off my future travel. It makes me think that a woman traveling on her own to meet people at a race might not feel safe. And also, I can't believe that it's 2022 and we're dealing with these sort of things. It feels like a step back in time. So whilst I enjoyed the race on track, that for me has kind of weighed over it a bit.
So let's talk about that anyway. So Perry, I mean, kind of, we've been having a bit of a discussion on Twitter today about a few things. One of them being sort of, should we just ban alcohol at tracks? Which, let's be honest, is an extreme measure, but could, in the very short term, maybe help. And like Sarah says, I've been to quite a few races, and I think the only one where I've ever been, and let's be honest, I'm not the demographic that seems to be affected by this so much. But going to Monza, I was like, in the heart of Ferrari, I'm wearing a McLaren. There was always a bit of needle between Ferrari and McLaren. Oh, they were so nice to you. And it was all about the racing. It was all about being a fan of the sport. And it was, despite a photograph to the contrary that's out there of me sitting under a Ferrari flag looking quite grumpy, it's part of the atmosphere. It's part of what happens. You go to Monza, you expect to see lots of Ferrari fans. You expect to see the passion. And you can't help being inspired by that, and like in awe of it as well. So there's being passionate about your driver, about supporting a team and that, but then there's stepping over that line and being an utter dick about it. And unfortunately, that's what we've seen a lot of reports of this weekend. And for me, completely unacceptable. My worry is FIA, F1 are going to do all about it again.
Well, it wouldn't be down to the FIA anyway, because they're the regulatory body for what happens on track. So I wouldn't blame them. But yeah, I mean, F1, they put out a statement which is a bit like waving a limp lettuce leaf in the wind. It's not doing anything. Red Bull released a statement after the race, which I thought was pretty pathetic because it's the Red Bull ring and it's got their name all over it. You know, I mean, there's been a few races I've been to where there have been large groups of Dutch Verstappen fans, some of whom I've spoken to, some of whom have been all right. But there was also a time in Monaco when I nearly got bowled over backwards by a load of them because they were all drunk and chanting and a little bit too exuberant and unaware of their surroundings. I think that would be the right way to put it. So although no one's ever, you know, I mean, I read some awful reports of girls having their skirts lifted up, things that were said. And I know there's a video going around on Twitter of someone burning a Mercedes cap, you know, which some people are taking like they're burning the blooming flag or something. I mean, my thought on that was, number one, you've burnt a very expensive cap there.
Yeah.
Do you know how much those things cost? Number two, oh God, if I was at a race and someone dropped a burning item on me, or even one of those bloody orange flares they let off, yeah, I've got asthma. I couldn't be anywhere near that. So all of the antisocial behaviour and the more extreme things we've been reading about that people have personally experienced, that would put me off going to Austria now. I wouldn't go there.
Or Van Zandvoort.
I wouldn't go to the Dutch Grand Prix either,
Yeah.
no, because I just don't want that. I just don't want that hassle.
Yeah.
I'm too old for all that crap now, you know. I don't want to be in a tussle. I want to go and enjoy my sport, look at the cars. I'm there because I'm technical, you know. I like seeing the cars, what's going on.
Yeah.
What about you, Perry? How did you feel about some of the things you've read and you know, what are your own feelings?
Yeah, it's really disappointing, isn't it? It's horrendously disappointing. As you say, Formula One then and everyone releasing these statements and saying we're going to do something about it. Do it. I mean, unfortunately, as you say, I think that will be the last we hear of it, and we'll return to the Red Bull Ring next year, and it will be the same orange smoke everywhere. I mean, I'm with you. These was it Gerald on the podcast after Zandvoort last year saying that these flares were going off all through the race, and seeing like point of view videos, you can't see any of the action. I'd be as pissed off watching through orange flares as I would be if a Ferrari emblem was draped over the top of me. But to hear some of the stories as well, it's just it's sickening. Is the word? It's utterly sickening. And the latest EE advert, is it Hope United, their campaign? That advert's really stuck with me lately. Actually, it's a really good ad campaign. It makes the point that, you know, women have to deal with so much, but it shouldn't be men. You know, it's up to us. It starts with us to really stop this. And I put something out saying, look, let's challenge it. Like if you are on, it's an online campaign, but if you're at the track and you see this behaviour happening, you can stand up as well. You can say, look, that isn't right. Go and sober up. Go over there and just cool off. You shouldn't be doing this. But if it's just a group mentality, as you say, and everyone's doing the same thing, are you really going to challenge 30, 40 drunk people? It's tough, but it starts with men. It starts with us, you know, I say us, me and Andy and other men out there to really call it out, stop it and challenge it.
Yeah. You know, we talk about herd immunity, talking about COVID. I felt that this group of people had obviously got some kind of herd immunity by virtue of the fact that there were so many of them. You know, if you were a security guard there, for you to stand up and challenge someone, you'd have probably risked getting, you know, trouble yourself. And that's the problem, isn't it? Is in order to change that,
what's going to stop like football style hooliganism in the grandstand? You know, fights between rival groups of fans. It maybe takes another driver to join the thing that's got such a fervent fan base that brings the tribalism with it and the nationalism that seems to go with it to, kind of make this an even worse problem. It needs to be addressed now before there's anything further down the line. Let's be honest. I want to see people enjoying themselves and having a great time. And the vast majority of Max fans, 99.9%, seem to do that and have a great time, and it's great to see them having a bit of a party, but just don't step over that line.
Maybe there needs to be a meeting point or a post or somewhere at the circuit where, you know, I say girls, it could happen to blokes as well. They could be targeted in any way, but where you can go and get help, that you know you can go and get help. You're not on your own.
Yeah.
Because you're a long way from home if you've travelled to a circuit like that, you know. I know we're running out of time, Andy, so I guess we should wrap this one up.
Yes. Yeah, well, that's it. Unfortunately, it was all the time we've got. Another fun-packed full podcast. We'll be back soon with the next one. And thanks, Perry, for joining us today.
Thanks,
appreciate
Perry.
it.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Great stuff. And as always, we'll be back soon.